Welcome to October. Fall is in the air. Leaves are turning beautiful colors. It's dry. The calm before the winter storms, you might say.
Man, you got the wrong script. That was last year's.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, oh man.
That's the right script.
Oh, it's getting really cold.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's freezing.
Scott, that's the last time you get to load up the teleprompter.
What happened to this October? This year isn't the same at all. Oh,
Just look at this
now
pumpkin.
we're ready.
And if pumpkins could talk, I think it would tell you just two words. Cold and snow. And if it had a brain like me, it would tell you about some of the weather records we set in October.
Well. Can't wait to hear the details. Let's say hello to everyone first, before we get too wrapped up in this wacky weather month of October.
You're right. I'm Matt.
And I'm Scott.
And we're from
Pooter High School.
For you weather geeks out there, today we're here to share with you some pretty scary information for the month of October. It's all about an unusual early first snow.
Cold temperatures.
A huge snowstorm.
A question. How often does it actually snow on Halloween?
Good question.
Yeah.
And to remind you that October is the first month of the 2010 water year. You know, numero uno, el primero, the big one step.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, every water year begins in October when our snow starts.
And ends after the spring runoff when the river flow rates are down at the end of September.
So, October 1st began our 2010 water year.
We're starting with a blast!
Oh yeah! And as we begin tracking our water all over again,
As a result of our weather,
we'll let you know about those water conditions such as precipitation, stream flow on the Pooter River, and water storage in Horsetooth Reservoir.
we'll continue to update you each month.
Just like we did last year.
So, tell me about October and why it was so unusual this year. And what happened to the fall? Did we skip it?
It certainly didn't linger this year. In fact, as I was raking, I noticed something that I've never noticed before. Some leaves weren't even brown. Some of them were still green. They hadn't even changed color. That was a first for me.
That is strange. What's your guess as to why this could have happened?
Let me put it to you straight, Matt. Fall was canceled. At least that was my first guess. Then I thought maybe the leaves retired early. Or basically, trees just hate cold weather. They're sensitive, Matt.
All right, wise guy. You know, the mind is a terrible thing to waste, Scott. How about if we try using it? Snow. Let's talk about it. There are some strange things that happened with snow this month that might have led to leaves not having enough time to change color. For starters, our first snowfall of the year was on October 10th.
Okay, so what? Don't we always get snow that early in October?
No, not normally. In fact, some years we don't get any snow in October at all, like last year. You see, last year we had nada, zilch.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Man. And when we look at our historical data, on average, our first snow doesn't even occur until the 29th of October. So, we had a very early first snow.
Boy, aren't you sharp today.
Ha! Not only that, we finished the month with a huge snowstorm.
Yeah, how could you forget the 2 days we spent relaxing, catching up on our study.
Right.
Yeah.
Pooter teachers are watching this and they probably should.
Yep.
Anyways, in fact, that end of the month snowstorm was the most snow in recorded history for Fort Collins in the month of October.
How about we talk about temperature? Cold temperature.
Yeah. This October was the fourth coldest October on record. The average low temperature for October is 35 degrees Fahrenheit, but this October, on average, was 33 degrees.
And the average high on record is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, but this October the average was 60 degrees.
The leaves didn't have a fighting chance to change color because of cold temperatures and a snowfall that came really early.
You have some questions, Scott?
I do. You see, Matt, I was just wondering, we've been talking a lot about long-term averages and short-term averages and historical data and norms and setting records, and I just don't know what exactly you mean by all that.
Well, that's easy. Let me explain with an example. How would you figure out how common it is for it to snow on Halloween Day?
I would ask my grandma. She is so smart. She's like a guru up on Mount Tibet.
Yeah? Nice try. But if we really wanted to find out how often it actually snows on Halloween, we could search the records and find the average. We did some research, and let's say that for the last 54 years of historical weather data, we'd like to know how many times snow has actually fallen on Halloween. It turns out that it has only snowed 7 times on Halloween Day in the last 54 years. If we divided 54 by 7, then we get 8. And we can say that on average, it snows every 8 years.
Does that mean if it hasn't snowed for 7 years, it will definitely snow this Halloween?
No. Some years it will not snow at all on Halloween, and other years it will snow every Halloween. It gives us an idea of the frequency of snow on that day every year, but it cannot tell us which year it will snow, if at all.
I think I get it. Now I finally understand long-term averages.
Good for you,
Thanks,
Scott.
Matt.
And that's October in a nutshell. We'll see you next month.
Oh wait, Matt. Graphs. We forgot the graphs.
Oh, I didn't know
I
you had
bopped
them
you
loaded
in the
up.
head.
I didn't know you had to load them up.
I'm on top of it, Matt.
Okay, that's good.
We'll begin with our total precipitation. That's the amount of rain and snow that fell in Fort Collins for the month of October.
We researched the last 115 years.
And the data shows that the average monthly precipitation varies from a low in February of almost a ½ inch to a high in May of over 2½ inches.
On average, Fort Collins receives about 1 inch of precipitation in October.
This year, the CSU weather station reported that we received 2.16 inches of precipitation.
Almost twice the norm.
Wow. Okay, so how much snow did we get?
The historical average for snow at the CSU weather station in Fort Collins is about 3.5 inches in October.
We blasted that one with 25.7 inches of snow, the greatest October snowfall in recorded history, going all the way back to 1889.
Okay, well let's take a look at mountain snow. There's always more snow in the mountains. We keep track of snowfall in the mountains at Joe Wright Reservoir, near the top of Poudre Canyon, almost to Cameron Pass. This smooth blue line shows the average amount of snow over the past 30 years.
But more correctly, it's the snow water equivalent, SWE for short.
Don't let that term throw you. Snow water equivalent, or SWE, is just a fancy term for the amount of water that results from melted snow.
Okay, now this brings us to a connection between precipitation and stream flow.
We know that eventually all the rain and snow drain into a common place in our own watershed.
The Poudre River.
Right, so based on what we know so far, how high do you think the Poudre River is flowing right now at the beginning of our water year?
Pretty low. The low flows on the river are typical for this time of year.
So what's left?
Well, of course, the water in our watershed is critical because we rely on it. And only about half of the water we use comes from the Poudre River. The rest comes from one of my favorite places to go in the summer.
Chuck E. Cheese?
No!
Oh, sorry.
Horsetooth Reservoir. Water doesn't just magically appear from the faucet. First it rains, then we store it.
Okay, well let's look at the water storage elevations of Horsetooth. They're at their highest in late spring.
In fact, last year's water levels at Horsetooth changed by about 40 feet from the highest water to the lowest.
But the water level drops the most in summer. What causes the drop in the summer and early fall?
Evaporation?
Good answer. But there's another cause.
Oh, farming. And cities too, I suppose.
You're right. In the summer, agriculture takes a lot of water from Horsetooth, but cities need water year-round, and they'll particularly hit the reservoir for what they need at the end of the water year. We're at some of our lowest water levels in Horsetooth. We've lost about 10 feet of water elevation since last month, and we'll see what happens next month. Do the water levels keep decreasing, or will they start to increase? And something to think about, where does the water come from that fills Horsetooth?
Haha, we'll leave you in suspense on that one. Cliffhanger for weather. This wraps it up for the October Water Report. I hope you all learned a few things.
Yeah, and we had an incredible snowy and cold October, and what a way to start our 2010 water year.
Good report, Matt. Hey, we'll see everyone in a month for a recap of our water conditions for the month of November.
See ya. Had enough of you, Scott.
What?